And we're live. This is a big deal, you guys. LaMonica. Oh, she's going to have to face the music. LaMonica McGiver just got indicted late last night. We were actually on late last night telling you about this, but there's so much more news to get to today. We've got LaMonica McGiver basically looking at up to, 17 years in federal prison? My gosh. And then there's more. There's much, much more. Take a look at that screen. Oh, wow. This is what you call a packed show. Okay, so Democrat representative indicted on 3 counts, federal counts. We've got the LA mayor announcing a curfew out there because she can't seem to get a handle on anything, even though the media would tell you otherwise. And you got the court telling California to sit tight, that no, you can't just kick the federal government out the way you want to. Representative Paulina Luna is joining us here on this show today, the representative out of Florida, to talk about just exactly who's financing all of this. Remember, we got into that a little bit yesterday. She is demanding answers. Wait till you hear from her. Plus, she's going to react to LaMonica. We've got Elon and Trump making peace. Okay, mom and dad are back together. Happy to hear about that. And Simone Biles is out there groveling to Riley Gaines. Boy, did she miscalculate that one. Welcome to the program. Hello. Good to have you here. I am Trish Regan. It's the Trish Regan Show, and we have just learned that a federal grand jury indictment has been handed down to none other than New Jersey Representative LaMonica. You know I love saying that. McGiver. LaMonica McGiver. She's in deep, deep trouble because you know what? She's facing up to 17 years in federal prison. This is a big freaking deal, you guys. You don't do this. You don't do what LaMonica did. Okay? It is not acceptable. And you know what? This is all alleged at this point, but we've seen the tape, and the tape is the tape kind of speaks for itself, right? She's the lady in red. And you can see she's muscling her way through the Delancey Immigration Detention Center where they were housing criminal migrants. She went in to pay a visit, which she said is part of her job. Apparently you are supposed to make an appointment, but not according to Monica. LaMonica. She wanted to go in there and immediately gain access. And the feds told her no. ICE was there on the scene. And she kept pushing her way through. And let's just say, it's not pretty. Wow. Okay, so that is our gal LaMonica, as you can see her in red, trying to make her way there through the crowd. And it did not go, dare I say, it did not go very well for her, because the upshot of this was that Alina Habba was all over it, and Alina Habba is no joke. Alina Habba said, you know what, you're going to pay the price for this. I'm bringing you in. I'm also bringing in the mayor of Newark, New Jersey. And she brought in the mayor, but the mayor was actually willing to play ball a bit. The mayor was willing to talk with her and acquiesce a little bit. And because he was willing to do that, he kind of got off the hook. And so he's not paying the price the way, say, one LaMonica is having to pay the price. And believe me, guys, this is what you call a big, big deal. I mean, she could be looking at, how do you have a congressperson that is being indicted on these federal assault charges? I want to show you another clip from right before I think things got really, really heated. It was just after the Newark mayor had been arrested, and she got really, really out in everybody's face, and she's yelling into the microphone about this, that, and the other. And the irony of this situation is that every time she tries to say something, the train goes, wah! And it's just kind of poetic.
Administration is trying to restrict Congress from doing their bare duties and the responsibilities that the people have elected us to do. What we just witnessed was just disgusting. I am very upset. I am very angry, and I am very hurt that they could be able to do something like that to us. These are people who are supposed to be officers, who are supposed to protect us, and they have done none of that. If they can treat 3 members of Congress like that, just imagine how they can treat people on the street each and every day, both undocumented and people who are citizens here in this country. It makes absolutely no sense to arrest the mayor of the largest city of this state who did nothing wrong.
Okay. I just had to play it for you because she's trying to get her message out there. And it's like, the the universe must be conspiring against you, LaMonica, because how else could you possibly have been indicted on 3 counts? I mean, I'll tell you how you were indicted. You pushed your way through the crowd, and well, even the president noticed, shall we say. Even the president noticed that was not what you would call proper behavior, especially for a representative. I know you're new, but a representative from U.S. Congress from New Jersey,
That woman was out of control. She was shoving federal agents. She was out of control. The days of that crap are over in this country. We're going to have law and order.
Imagine that. We are going to have law and order. And so all this relates back to California, and we'll get into that in just a moment. But first, consider what this woman is up against. She is being charged on this violation of Title 18, U.S. State Code, Section 111A1 for assaulting, impeding, and interfering with law enforcement. And now she faces 17 years in prison. Oh, AOC is mad. She already said, don't you dare come after my peeps. Tom Homan, Alina Habba, the rest of you. Looks like they're coming after him. AOC, not sure what you're going to do about it now.
If anyone's breaking the law in this situation, it's not members of Congress, it's the Department of Homeland Security. It's people like Tom Homan and Secretary Kristi Noem. You lay a finger on them, we are going to have a problem.
You might have a little problem then. Just a little one. Because as I've said before, the federal government has all the jurisdiction here. She didn't have the right to show up unannounced and try and muscle, what else are you going to call it, right? Muscle her way in. She couldn't actually do that. And when Alina gave her a chance to, acquiesce and plead to something, or at least, have a conversation, she wouldn't do it, remember? And she went on Jen Psaki's show on MSNBC and said this.
Well, Habba said you had declined every opportunity to come to a resolution. You said they wanted you to admit to something you didn't do. What did they want you to admit to?
There was a lot. We've had a week of back and forth with them, and I will say that I did not waver. I showed up there to do my job, and she wanted me to admit to doing things, all of these different lists of things that she said that I did.
Like what?
From things of impeding,
I don't know, like that little impeding thing when you were kind of forcing your way through the crowd, bumping yourself into ICE officers. Apparently the feds have way, way worse video.
There's some other things in there that she put in there, but I can't remember exactly what it was, but she wanted me to admit to these things, sign an agreement to them, and I'm not doing that.
No, she's not doing that. She's LaMonica McGiver. She has no regrets about any of this. Okay, no regrets. In fact, the fact that she showed no remorse, I suspect, is partly what got her into this trouble in the first place. The fact that she wasn't willing to play ball or have a conversation with Alina. Alina actually, I know her, and she's a nice person, okay? And she's a forgiving person, and you look what happened with the Newark mayor. A lot of people were mad about that. They were like, she should have thrown the book at him too. But she didn't. She didn't throw the book at him because he actually worked with her. And this one, on the other hand, they had this video of, and she wasn't willing to. And you know what? She went on CNN like the next day and clearly expressed this no regrets agenda. Listen.
Congresswoman, earlier in the show, Republican Congressman Warren Davidson was on with my colleague John Berman, and John asked him about the charge that you're now facing. He said he wasn't entirely sure of everything involved in the case or the charge, but he did say this. I want to play this for you.
So anytime, one party goes after another, it's viewed as political. But I think the principle has to be that no one really is above the law. I hope they work it out. And, I hope we resolve things in a place that's rational. It seems crazy to me that you've got members of Congress and some of the public, but not much, certainly not in my district, defending MS-13 gang members. They're not here legally. I think the mandate in this election is they need to leave.
Just wondering, as you can respond to the congressman there, but also having time and space to think about what happened on that day and reflect on it, would you have done anything differently?
Wait for it.
No, I would not have. Once again, we showed up there to do a job, Kate. We were there for an oversight visit. We have done this before. You know, me, Congresswoman Bonnie Watson Coleman, and Congressman Bob Menendez was just at a facility just a couple of weeks ago, not too far from this location, where we had an oversight visit, and we were a little bit delayed, but not, confronted or was in the middle of a chaos to do so. I think, number one, we have an obligation to do so. We have to show up and do our jobs. And at the end of the day, the reason why we were there is because
I don't understand how that was doing your job, okay? Again, I think you know better too. And Alina knows better too. And so this is one of the things that Alina initially put out as she was charging this woman, or bringing forward charges. And again, just confirming that late last night, we got word that the grand jury had handed down that indictment in the LaMonica McGiver case. So again, very, very big deal. And there are going to be people like AOC saying, oh, this is so unfair and this is so wrong and this is just Trump and fascism. And it's like, no, guys, like, you actually can't do what you were doing. And I don't know, as we want to live in a world where Congress people, just because they're Congress people, can show up and get away with that. So anyway, she had put this out, and this is back on May 19th. She said, look, the citizens of New Jersey deserve united leadership to get the work done that we need to get done to keep our state safe. The dismissal against the mayor is not the end of this matter, however, because then she brings up LaMonica McGiver, who insulted, she said, impeded and interfered with law enforcement. This is all alleged, of course, but it was on the tape, of Title 18, a violation of Title 18, Code Section 111A1. This is what I was just showing you. And she said that, this is a violation of her constitutional duties and obligation to ensure that our federal law enforcement is protected. She has to do that when executing their duties. So basically, you know what? LaMonica, it is big trouble for you. I don't think you're going to fare so well in federal prison. I mean, I just don't think, I don't think you're cut out for it. I mean, hey, I don't know, you get the slamming thing down, maybe you'll be just fine. Ooh. So, I know a lot of you guys are like, oh, it's not going to happen, they're not going to do anything, but listen, they just moved forward with the grand jury indictment. So that is a big, big, big deal. Okay, and things are not going the way the Democrats had hoped. Let's just say that. I mean, you go out to California, for example, a judge just shot down Gavin. Gavin's like, the feds can't come here. They can't send their Marines and they can't send their National Guard. And you know what? We're not in agreement with this. So they can't come here. And you know what the court said? Too bad, buddy. You know what? They have the jurisdiction, and so we're not going to immediately dismiss them. He wanted this emergency dismissal, okay? This emergency request. And they said, nope, we'll look at the case. We'll hear the case. You can make some arguments on Thursday, but the deal is that the federal government has that right? You can go on about this and that all you want, but the federal government's job is to ensure, ultimately, at the end of the day, law and order. And if a state can't do it or won't do it for any reason because they don't believe maybe in the policies of the federal government, well, it's too bad, because there's this little thing called the supremacy clause. Gavin, did you not go to law school? I mean, it seems like everybody in politics went to law school, but even if you did, I don't think it would matter.
Where's your decency, Mr. President? Stop. Rescind this order. It's illegal and unconstitutional. And I said it, I'll say it again, it's immoral. You're creating the conditions that you claim you're solving, and you're not. And you're putting real people's lives at risk.
I don't know about that. And by the way, Donald Trump is all for home and arresting Gavin Newsom. I don't think that's actually going to happen. But he doesn't need it to get that far, because you know what? The courts are going to work this out. And already they're saying, Gavin, it's just not going to fly. Incidentally, did you notice how much that MSNBC reporter looked exactly like Rachel Maddow? Go back for a second.
Where's your decency, Mr. President? Stop. Rescind this order. It's illegal and unconstitutional. And I said it, I'll say it again, it's immoral. You're creating the conditions that you claim you're solving, and you're not. And you're putting real people's lives at risk.
Yeah. Right? Am I right? I realize I'm going off on a wild detour right now, but I've noticed that so many of those correspondents, really and truly, over there on MSNBC tend to look like carbon copies of Rachel Maddow. What's the guy that has the evening show now, Chris Hayes? Yeah, he looks just like Rachel Maddow, does he not? Like in the beginning when he first came on TV. And then here's this correspondent who I think is relatively new. I do not know who this person is, but hey, this person could go on to big, great things over on MSNBC because he too, as I just showed you, looks just like Rachel Maddow. Anyway, here he is outside defending everyone, saying, you know what, this is not fair, it's not right, really reflecting his own point of view, of course.
The big picture is Los Angeles is a so-called majority-minority city and a majority-minority state. There are more people of color that live in Los Angeles than white people at this point. And many of those people are undocumented. By some counts, 10% of the population of LA County, one of the largest counties, the largest county by population in the United States, is undocumented. Maybe as many as 1 million people. Those people are our neighbors, our coworkers, our classmates, our friends, our parishioners, fellow parishioners in churches. They are part of the fabric of the city of Los Angeles. And
yeah, okay, so he's talking the right talk. He's got the right look. I'm thinking, Peppermint Patty, your days may be over. Anyway, I digress. That is sort of the party line, right, that you're hearing from MSNBC, and for this is not fair, this is not right. But again, let me go back to what the judge has just said. They're rejecting Newsom's emergency request. They're like, no, you know what? The federal government actually does have this power. So now we'll take a look at your case. You can present the arguments in a normal fashion, but here's the deal. At first glance, Trump, he has that power all day long. And we've talked about this before, right? Because of the supremacy clause, because of the commerce clause, because of the naturalization clause, you name it. And now they're looking at a situation where things are unfolding in real time and they don't want to tell you that there's any protests or any riots or anything's out of control. I mean, Maxine Waters, it's all just fine and dandy, she said, because nobody's gotten killed. Literally. I mean, she's like, well, where's the violence? I guess you get a really high standard there, a really high bar, Maxine, for the violence. But, they've had to deal with this to the point where now Karen Bass, the rather unfortunate mayor of Los Angeles, has come forward with a curfew. She announced that last night in order to try and get things under control. Over the weekend, however, Gary's metal detecting, thank you so much for the generosity. I got to get to these comments from you guys. I so appreciate it. You look over the weekend, right? And over the weekend, they were trying to say, oh, nothing to see here. It's really no big deal. But look, you guys have seen the video. I've seen the video. I think that there's actually a fair amount to see there. And we do have a lot of questions as to why we're seeing it and why it's happening now, for example. I think these are fair questions to be asking, and we're going to get into them momentarily with Paulina Luna, who's going to be in the House, and we'll talk to her about this because she has some theories on it. But, look, I don't think what's going on there is good. Gary, I don't know where you live, but Gary's saying send more troops. If you're in California, I can understand how you may want that, right? Under the circumstances. Look, there's Mansam Sung, thank you again for your generosity, is not convinced that anything really is going to happen, that there is so-called dark money behind this. There is, and again, that's what I want to get into in just a moment, because you got to look at how much China may also be playing a role in bankrolling some of this nefarious activity, only because they want us to be fighting with each other, right? So Karen Bass out there saying it's not right, they're like sending all these people in and this is just creating the problem. So I get a kick out of it. They're trying to actually blame Trump for the problem. I mean, the real problem might actually indeed be, one, a community there of lawmakers who don't know how to do the right thing. I mean, this woman was off in Africa, was she not? When the fires started there in California. So she didn't know how to handle that, for sure. And then you combine that with an opportunistic governor who's trying to set himself up for a run against Trump. And so he's looking at it as a political opportunity. And I think, if you're the Chinese instigators there, you're laughing all the way to the bank thinking, well, okay, well, I'll confuse the U.S. over all of this. Again, she had to put in place a lockdown, a curfew last night. And again, it's better coming from her. You know what? We shouldn't have to get the National Guard out there. We shouldn't have to send 700 Marines. Nobody wants to have to do that. But you also can't have a situation that bubbles up into a real problem. But, they're saying, no, you can't do this. And I just go back to all the things that I've told you guys about before, that we have the federal authority, shall we say, as a nation, to exercise the right over a state of like California if they're in real trouble, which is what, again, I'm looking at the same video you're looking at, they seem to be in. And that's because of things like the Naturalization Clause, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 4. The Congress shall have the power to establish a uniform rule of naturalization. Now, what does this give the Congress the power to do? It gives the federal government the power and the authority to oversee immigration and who is coming to this country. All right, full stop. So if you want to change at AOC, you're actually going to have to change the law first. And by the way, Tom Homan's tried to explain this to you. Apparently, you just don't get it. You also get the Commerce Clause, right? So they're regulating interstate commerce, and this is used for a lot. It gives the federal government a lot of power, if you would. You've got the constitutional basis for federal power over immigration coming from the Necessary and Proper Clause, which allows for Congress to pass immigration laws as needed in order to enforce its enumerated powers, because this Necessary and Proper Clause is, and I'll read, to make all laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution the foregoing powers. And so Article 1, Section 8, Clause 18, you can go on and on. I mean, basically, no matter any which way you slice it, guys, I'm going to tell you what the deal is. And that is that the federal government trumps, pun intended, Gavin Newsom, Karen Bass, all day long and then some. Okay, all day long and then some. And so look, they're just going to have to deal with this. And I think the good news is hopefully we can actually get things under control, because right now it's not a very good situation. Now, is it? Can anybody tell me that that is a good situation that we have there in California? No. And then you got to ask yourself, where is this coming from? Where is this coming from? And I think the answer gets back to this. It's a story we talked about yesterday, okay? You see this? You see what's on the screen right now? A couple, the woman is the founder of Code Pink. The guy is somebody who lives part of the year in Shanghai, China, apparently, according to the New York Times, shares offices with an arm of the CCP that is responsible for propaganda. And it is believed that China has a very heavy hand in the riots and what's going on in Los Angeles and what's expected to be happening on the 14th as well. So that's not good. I had read this article a couple years ago, and I'll tell you what jogged my memory. We're going to go to Paulina Luna in just a moment, but here's the representative from Florida who did a social media post yesterday afternoon, and watch what she says.
Just found a really great deep dive here from the Data Republican on X. So who is behind all these crazy riots in LA and that will be across the nation? Just like, remember, in the Summer of Love with BLM, remember who's organizing all that stuff? With this specifically is being funded by an individual by the name of Neville Singman, who actually made his money by pushing communist Chinese propaganda, became a billionaire doing it. He's now funding, and the guy behind all of these protests was also behind and tied to the protests at Columbia University, pushing all of that BS, if you don't remember. And then also, too, if you actually look at the social organization that's putting out these flyers, it's the Party for Socialism and Liberation, which is, and I kid you not, the actual Communist Party. So they're using Hispanics, they're using illegal immigrants, they're trying to hype people up thinking that they care, but they don't care. They would stop illegal immigration. Obama deported people. Why all of a sudden now? It's political.
Representative Paulina Luna from Florida joining me right now. It is great to have you here.
Thanks for having me on, Trish.
I saw what you were doing yesterday with Neville Singman, and it blew me away. And I was talking to the viewers yesterday. It jogged my memory, and I dug up this old New York Times post. I was just like, wow, like this is crazy. If this amount of money is actually being directed in part by foreigners, right, by China, not exactly our friend, then I think we have a far larger problem than we ever thought of. But it was you who brought this to my attention. And I think you're trying to do a little bit more with this. Explain to me what's going on, your concerns, and what you do as a member of the House Oversight Committee to confront it head on.
Yeah, so I'm a member of the House Oversight Committee. Also, I head up the task force on declassifications. But really, when I first started seeing these riots that are not organic, started to be organized. And then I was actually on X, and I came across a thread by a woman who goes by the name of the Data Republican on X.
Yep, I'm looking at it.
She had actually posted that an individual by the name of Neville Singman was actually the one that was funding these riots, and then all the different organizations that he funded that are actually communist organizations that are the ones that are putting up these flyers and organizing them specifically around states. Well, he's not the only one, right? Like, their end objective, though, is to really hurt President Trump, hurt the ideological space here with Americans. Now, this is kind of big picture.
Let me jump in on that, because you know, you're Hispanic yourself, right? And I think this is important. I'm actually
Mexican American.
I'm not Hispanic. I'm all Irish through and through, but I speak fluent Spanish, and I've spent a lot of time covering some of these really important stories in Latin America. And you know, I kind of get Hispanic culture. I think that the Democrats were really shocked that they didn't get the Hispanic win, right? This time around. And I kind of wonder, is any of this trying to feed into like this fear? Because most Hispanics, by the way, that I talk to don't want illegal criminals here anyway.
Majority of Americans, according to polling, want deportation of violent migrants, which is exactly what this is. These are illegals that have come here that have committed crimes, and they're getting deported. But to your point, the Democrats actually did look at why they lost in large portions the Hispanic vote for President Trump moving into the 2024 election cycle. And this actually goes into the fact that Hispanic Americans vehemently reject illegal immigration. We know what it does to our communities. And because of the fact that you had Joe Biden and Kamala Harris that were running on this platform and then also pandering, it did not bow well. Well, let's look at the bigger picture, right? So we have an upcoming midterms. We have these people. We know we now find the money trail. Mr. Singham has actually been funding this, but it's a lot darker than that. So Mr. Singham's also married to a woman who actually funds something called Code Pink that's been responsible for a lot of the doxing and then also stalking of members up here in Washington, D.C. But look at the messaging that Code Pink is pushing, also tied to the CCP. And ultimately, what's interesting about this and going into the investigations that we're launching, because I did speak to Chairman Comer on House Oversight, and Oversight's going to be sending a request to Mr. Singham to produce documents and then also to testify to Congress. If he does not show up, he will be held in contempt of Congress. I can promise you that. And he will be prosecuted under the Department of Justice. But the fact is that Mr. Singham, as we had spoken about earlier, he also happens to live in Shanghai part of the year. And he is also not a registered foreign agent, yet receives money from China. So that would be making him guilty of a FARA violation. And then also an agent of China. And so these are all things that Congress should have done a while ago, not just with Mr. Singham, but other organizations tied to foreign influence, especially being that some of them, like Code Pink, operate here actually within the Capitol. It's not a shock to anyone. Everyone knows about the Chinese spy incident with Eric Swalwell, and then also Dianne Feinstein's driver being also a Chinese spy. So, you know, mind you, Trish, this is all happening at the same time where in the last couple of weeks, we've had now 3 incidences of agro-terrorism or some form of bioweapon coming from China that's been attempted to be smuggled in here. I do think that they're linked. You have 2 incidences now all tied to economic trade with China, with President Trump being hard and strong on China. And now they're starting to launch from within. Nothing was in and out of China.
And I go back to, we've known about this guy for a bit. A global web of Chinese propaganda leads to a U.S. tech mogul. So the New York Times actually admitted this back in 2023. We've got Data Republican that's all out over it, looking at basically the tie to the most recent incidents. I mean, it's fascinating because he's married to the woman who is the founder of Code Pink. And it's fascinating because she used to be anti-China until all of a sudden the funding was coming from someplace else.
And the funding is tied from Code Pink also to China. So I think that this is all correlated. People think, they must really just care. These organizations really just care about these poor illegals. The fact is that here's the first truth bomb. Illegals are not just Hispanic and they're not just Mexicans, right? Why would they choose to hit and use a Mexican flag? Well, maybe it's because the largest voting minority in the country are Mexican Americans. Second lie here is that, what is actually happening with these organizations? Where's the funding coming from? It's not just coming from Americans, it's actually coming from Chinese agents. And so what I would say is that, yes, you have people that are low information thinking that this might be about deportations. It's not. In fact, it's far more nefarious than that. I would say that, Barack Obama actually deported the most illegals, I think, as any president. Why did these protests not happen under Barack Obama? Why is it not happening under President Trump? And so I think that this is correlated. I absolutely think now that we have the money trail, that it's time that Congress investigates. We're not just sending strongly worded letters. We are teeing this up.
So you're going to demand he come in. He testify. You're going to ask about all this
testify.
money, his connections to the CCP. He's said all along, no. Like, he's maintaining his innocence. He's just a communist. I mean, literally. And you said it in your video. Communist. Like, kid you not. Communist
Kid you
party.
not, he's a communist. And so, this is, I think, something that will always be at the heart of ideological wars here in the United States, is that you do have people, they try to sow disinformation and discord via these bot farms, pitting us at each other. But at the end of the day, it's literally Western culture, Western civilization against communism. And that's how people think, we're helping these illegals. It's not about that. It's never been about that. It's always about money, follow the money trail.
It's just the way the world works. They may pretend they're socialists or communists, but at heart, they really are capitalists because they're looking out for numero uno.
They want their money. Yeah.
Let me ask you about LaMonica McGiver. Three federal indictment counts against her. She seemed to have no remorse. Alina Habba gave her this opportunity to say, look, I shouldn't have been impeding law enforcement. She probably could have walked away scot-free, similar to what the mayor got. Instead, she doubled down, insisted on her innocence, despite the fact that they have this video. And now we learned last night that there is a grand jury indictment that was just unsealed against her. She could potentially be facing up to 17 years. She is a member of Congress like yourself. AOC said, don't you dare, right? Come for my people. What's your reaction?
What I would tell you is Alina is an absolute pitbull, and they need to throw the book at her, metaphorically, mainly because of the fact that if you allow one person to do this to assault law enforcement, look, George Santos, don't agree with what he did, but he wasn't even charged yet, and he was expelled from Congress. As soon as they charge her, she needs to be expelled from Congress as well.
Wow. Okay. Well, we'll be watching for that. And, I'd love to have you back, Representative, because I think that this story here with the Chinese funding is going to heat up. I think we can't pretend, they think we had something to do with Hong Kong, whether we did or not. Maybe they're looking at this as payback. I don't know. But I think that we're going to anticipate more of this. And I love, love, love that you're following the money. And I hope you come back and give us all the updates.
Thanks, Trish.
Really, really great to have Anna there today. Okay, so again, just to recap, if you're joining us right now, make sure to subscribe, share, like, all that good stuff. We're just speaking with Anna. She is going to be issuing a subpoena to one Neville Singman, who is believed to be the money behind many of these riots, specifically the ones in LA. So he's a tech billionaire. He lives much of the year in China. And her big question there is, why isn't he registered as a foreign agent? How can you be giving all these money to so-called, nonprofits and NGOs? Okay, you're a communist. This is what you believe in. But at what point does it sort of cross the line to the point where you're actually pushing a Chinese viewpoint? And she's got a lot of backing on this, including from, as I said, some liberal publications, including not just the New York Times, but also the Daily Beast. They've all reported on this. We talked about this yesterday, about how this party for socialism and liberation is funded by him, as is Code Pink, which is his wife's organization. And they are based out of San Francisco, and they have arranged for so many of these things happening in California right now. So it's wild, right? Like, it's just really, really, really wild stuff. Again, I encourage you to check out this article. We're going to get more from Anna again in the days ahead. The great representative. By the way, how many representatives have been on the cover of Maxim magazine? Just saying. Okay. So So we are definitely going to hear more from her because she's a pit bull herself, and she's all over this, and she's not going to let it go. And neither is yours truly. All right. So watch, because we can't have that kind of interference. We just can't. It's not acceptable. And by the way, the guy gets tax deductions for doing it. I don't think so. Okay, we're fully independent right here on the Trish Regan Show. I want to give a shout out to one of our sponsors right here. Trish loves gold. You know I love gold, right? Up to $15,000 in free silver for those of you that invest with American Hartford Gold. You can call them at 1-844-495-1115. You can text Trish to 65532. Text Trish to 65532. We have a lot we want to get to because Elon and Trump are making peace. And you know who else is making peace? The two little, the little one's big. That would be Riley. She's like a good sized, attractive woman, Riley Gaines, and little Simone Biles is the one who's going groveling back, if you would, trying to make peace with them. And then the other thing we got to get to, and Peace of My Mind actually just brought this up, is Terry, right? Because Terry Moran's out, big time at ABC. Anyway, great news here. Mom and dad are back together. It seems Elon and Trump making peace here. You know, Trump said he would. I told you, you know what? He's super forgiving. He doesn't hold a grudge. It's actually one of the really nice things about him. It's in contrast to one Joe Biden, who apparently can't remember much, but can remember who he hates. People said, boy, could this guy ever hold a grudge? Well, Donald Trump's not like that. And in the wee hours of the morning, what did we see on X? But Elon Musk saying, and I quote, "I regret some of my posts about President @ Donald Trump last week. They went too far." You know, that took a lot for him to do. I'm sure he didn't like having to do that. Some people are saying, oh, it's about the EV credit. No, I think it's about a lot more, frankly. I think Donald Trump stands for something. And when Elon looked at what was going on out in LA, he was appalled. So you saw a series of tweets over the last 24 hours or so. Governor Gavin Newsom, the president writes, and Mayor Bash should absolutely apologize to the people of Los Angeles for the absolutely horrible job that they have done. And this now includes the ongoing LA riots. These are not protesters. They're troublemakers, insurrectionists, remember, no masks, etc. And so Elon sent this out. He also sent out another post from the president saying a once great American city, Los Angeles, has been invaded and occupied by illegal aliens and criminals, etc. And he was talking about the protests that were going on. And so Elon's just sort of resending of this and things that are very much in agreement with the president's policies was definitely signaling a different tone, especially after, you know, you'd had the Epstein allegations. He took that down, by the way. He took that down. So some people were saying, oh, is it because he's going to sue him? You know, that's an interesting thought. He probably could have for libel. But I think he actually wants to protect his relationship with Elon, and he respects Elon fundamentally. And, you know, Elon's a little quirky, but what billionaire who's trying to send us to Mars isn't, right? Kind of goes with, you know, par for the territory. Anyway, Elon and Musk making peace. It's nice to see. And we kind of knew this would happen. I played this soundbite a couple of weeks ago, and I thought this was good to hear because Jesse Waters said it very well, my former colleague over on Fox, on The Five, when he was trying to explain to Jessica Tarlov, who's there as kind of the court jester, right? Like she's the one that they beat up on because she represents the Democrat Party. He's like, you know, Jessica, it's never going to happen. You all are thinking that maybe you can get Elon on your side. You know what? Elon knows where his friends are. And even though it's been a tough go for the last couple weeks, fundamentally, he knows exactly what you guys are about and exactly what the right is about. Let's listen.
Democrats' funeral. Your party's dead, Jessica.
What?
And you basically pushed the world's wealthiest man into our arms. You took...
And now he's running from you. He went on one date.
Wait, no, this is the day that he was supposed to leave.
Yeah, he's supposed to leave tomorrow, 180 days. How do I know that and you don't,
It's
Jessica?
130.
Listen, you now made Elon Musk the Republican Party's biggest donor. Thank you. Thank you very much. You think he's just going to stop giving?
He said I'm stopping giving.
Okay, I've heard that before. They're going to give. You think he's not giving to Vance? After what you did to him, you think he's just going to bury the hatchet? After you called him a Nazi? After you bombed his cars, you think the next election he's going to be like, all right, you know what? Let the Democrats get back in there. Because what do you think the Democrats are going to do when they get back in? They're going to go all in and try to put the man in prison. They're going to try to bankrupt his companies and investigate the hell out of him. You think he's not going to give anymore? You are I'm not going to say the word idiot, but you've made a huge mistake and you don't realize how dumb it is. Also, you're saying how much you need men. Young men idolize Elon Musk. They want to be him. They want to be based. They want to ride around in his trucks, and they want to hang with big balls. And now every time you attack Elon Musk, you're attacking all of the young men that you need for your party to survive. You're attacking a living legend. We're talking Rockefeller.
Like, he's not wrong, right? A lot of men, a lot of young men. I think my son was showing me, he's like, hey, Mom, this Cybertruck for kids up to age 12. Leave it to Elon, right? To make a Cybertruck for kids. This little electric vehicle goes up to 10 miles an hour. That caught his eye. I'm like, anyway, a lot of kids, a lot of young men love Elon Musk. I think he's been a great force for the party, and I think he's going to stay in this party. And so it's just nice to see the two of them getting back together, because everybody's like, this is kind of uncomfortable. When Elon and Trump are at it, like, it doesn't feel good. And you've got two very different kinds of personalities, but very strong personalities. And I would say, on the one hand, you've got Elon Musk, who's very much an idealist. He really is. I mean, he wants to send everybody to Mars, right? And like have an alternative for we wouldn't have EVs, let's be honest, if it weren't for Elon Musk. PayPal as well. I mean, you think about our ability to send money electronically, that's all coming from him. So he's an innovator. He's idealistic. He has these lofty goals. And one of those goals was to really, 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 really cut down on our debt. And unfortunately, it's hard to do, right? And I'm not making excuses here, but it is just hard to do. Meanwhile, you've got Donald Trump, who is goal-oriented, but he's also practical. And he's a pragmatist who kind of just wants to get things to the finish line. And that's sort of where things started to fall apart, if you would. Because on the one hand, Donald Trump wants to get a deal done because he wants those tax cuts to be grandfathered in. You need to get the permanent sort of tax reduction. But are you going to be able to get it when all this other stuff gets reduced? That is, in fact, the problem. And so we don't want to lose Elon. Elon's good for the party. Elon is a tremendous sort of visionary. Let's not lose sight of that. But at the end of the day, Donald Trump is the president of the United States and he's in charge. And so it's good to see Elon eating a little bit of humble crow there, right? Well, I love that. You know what? I regret some of my posts. I'll take that for an apology. Will you guys take that for an apology? Maybe somebody else should have apologized a little bit better than he did. We're going to talk coming up about Terry. This was your big break. Finally, people were going to get to know you. Well, they know you all right. ABC cutting the cord with Terry Moran. But before we get to that, we've got another piece of cord. What do you know? Simone Biles is coming to her senses after attacking Riley Gaines. The stunningly beautiful, courageous. I am telling you, this young woman is amazing, because what she has had to put up with is so severe and so wrong, but she stands for young women everywhere. And I say this as a proud mom of two athlete daughters. I was never an athlete like them. No. Singing. that was me, but they are serious athletes with big aspirations. One of my kids is at nationals right now. And what Riley Gaines has done for women's sports, like, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it, because she didn't need to take this on, okay, guys? She did not need to do this, and she did it, and she did it for my kids, for your kids, for generations of women that want to be able to compete on a really big level. But we're losing opportunities, including Riley, right? Who should have won. But because there is somebody who was born as a biological man and decided at University of Pennsylvania, mind you, to change genders and compete on the women's team, Riley lost out. And you know what? She's determined that that's not going to happen to any other girl. But Simone Biles decided, well, Riley's wacky and prejudiced and doesn't like trans because of this. So she decided it was really weird to go on a rampage on Twitter. She's doing a backflip, okay? to use a little bit of gymnastics. All right. She's like a quadruple backflip or whatever they call these things. She's doing a backflip because guess what? Turns out Riley has a lot of fans. A lot of them. Like every young female athlete, for starters, okay? She is kind of an American hero now, an American icon. So when you attack Riley, Simone, you're attacking young women everywhere. You're also attacking conservatives everywhere. And you know what? We have a voice now. We can speak up. We can talk. And we can be heard. And believe me, conservatives were heard. Right? You know, she came out. Let me see if I can go to the original tweet. Here we go. And we'll go to the response of one Riley Gaines, who is just a class act all the way. She said, Riley Gaines, you're truly sick. Whoa! Okay, like, that's a pretty aggressive thing to say to someone. And I'm like, who is this? Did somebody like hijack her little Twitter account? Because, you know, she's just this little gymnast who is making her living out on the speaking circuit. Andy, thank you so much. Always appreciate the generosity. Love having you here. And I knew you'd love my guest choice. We don't do a lot of guests here, but when we get them, we like to really get them, right? Paulina Luna is going to come back. Anyway, she writes, you're truly sick of all the campaigning because you lost a race. You're doing all this campaigning because you lost a race. Excuse me? I mean, what, Riley's supposed to like sit back and just take it? That's what you want? How can you say that you stand for women when you're saying, suck it up, too bad, some guy who was born a guy who decided he was a girl, but still had all the, you know, like the testosterone buildup of, I mean, how can you say that? You're truly sick. All this campaigning because you lost a race. Straight up sore loser, she writes. You should be uplifting the trans community and perhaps finding a way to make sports inclusive or creating a new avenue where trans feel safe in sports. Maybe a transgender category in all sports, but instead you bully them. One thing for sure is no one in sports is safe when you are around, writes one Simone Biles. Okay, like Riley's not good enough? Riley should have won? Come on. I mean, look, Riley, forgive me, this is the wrong post. We're going to get to that. Because people started it just got really vicious. She wrote, this is so disappointing. It's not my job or the job of any woman to figure out how to include men in our spaces. You can uplift men stealing championships in women's sports with your platform. Men don't belong in women's sports, and I say that with my full chest. And so then, you know, Simone is saying, oh, well, she could beat a man. She could beat a man in gymnastics. I don't know about that. But maybe she could, right? Maybe she could, because in gymnastics, don't you need to be small? It's not like part of the advantage, you know, all these gymnasts, they're little teeny tiny things. I'm about 5'7", so you wouldn't see me as a gymnast, right? A little too tall. Kind of grew up out of that. Not that I was ever good at cartwheels or any of that, but nonetheless, you need to be small to be a gymnast. And so I could see a scenario where, hey, maybe Simone could, right? Unless, you know, she got a really compact guy. So she's not looking at these things in the right way. She's making all kinds of, dare I say, inaccurate analogies, and she's conflating women's sports, men's sports, women's bodies with men's bodies because, well, she didn't get a whole lot of education. I mean, she was too busy doing the cartwheels, right? So she didn't get a ton of education, whereas, you know, Riley was in college, et cetera. So a little bit of a different scenario. So she's not operating on the same playing field. So maybe we got to cut her some slack because she's just not that bright, but clearly not bright, picking this kind of fight with this kind of icon. And so now, ladies and gentlemen, she's walking it back. She's walking it back because she feels bad. Well, here's the thing. I don't think she feels bad. I think she's walking it back because she just realized she did some serious brand damage to herself. she thought she was doing great. She's out on some speaking circuit. They hire her at some liberal universities here and there to give some commencement speeches, even though she barely finished seventh. I don't even know. She might have been homeschooled. Nothing against homeschooling, by the way, but I have a feeling that for Simone Biles, it was kind of a different scenario. Here's a multiple choice test. All the answers are right. Just focus on those cartwheels and those backflips and that kind of stuff. Anyway, she's trying to walk this back because some of the people came out with some really, really aggressive things against her, including one of our friends here. She's been on the show. This is George Papadopoulos' wife. She tweeted this out when she was referring to Riley Gaines versus herself. She said, "You're talking about yourself, right? Riley Gaines is not the masculine one looking here." So there were some just really bad sort of arrows that Simone was launching at Riley, and Riley didn't deserve any of that. And I'm just glad to see that it's resolving itself. So now Simone issues this, Simone, I'm thinking Simona Mangiante, the Italian woman who put out that tweet. She's actually saying, would you forgive me? Would you forgive me? Because I really didn't mean this kind of stuff. And I think it's not really about forgiveness. I think she's actually realized that she is going to lose speaking revenue because she has just become a kind of hated person, right? So now she's making this statement because, she wants to acquiesce and gain some of her followers back. Here, I'm going to quote it for you. Okay, she said, "I wanted to follow up from my last tweets. I've always believed competitive equity and inclusivity are both essential in sport. The current system doesn't adequately balance these important principles, which often leads to frustration and heated exchanges. It didn't help for me to get personal with Riley, which I apologize for." So it strikes me that she is not actually showing any remorse. She's just kind of trying to maybe not get so much hate directed at her and protect her brand if she could by any means necessary. It's a very sort of Machiavellian approach. So that's Simone. But you know what? I'll just tell you this. You know who is a champ, a total champ, because she actually wrote that she accepted the apology from Simone and that, you know what, they could move forward. And then she even, on top of that, Riley Gaines, cautioned against other people who were trying to inflict more hate on Simone. And so she's trying to bring the situation back. I would just say, once again, proving that she is just a really, really great woman. And we're lucky to have her representing girls everywhere and women's sports. It's wonderful, wonderful to see. Okay, peace of my mind. I know you were waiting on this story. He's out. Terry. He's out at Disney's ABC News. They fired the guy. They fired him after he made those really awful social media posts. I'm like, buddy, what were you thinking? In the dead of the night, it had a few too many pops or something. Saturday night. Maybe put the Twitter thing down next time. So, they were bad. They're so bad. Let's see if I'll show you one. The thing about Stephen Miller is not that he is the brains behind Trumpism. Yes, he is one of the people who conceptualizes the impulse of the Trumpist movement and translates them into policy. But that's not what's interesting about Miller. It's not brains, it's bile. He goes on and, it gets worse. It goes on and on about how clearly he's a person of hate. I actually don't want to even read it because it's not worth it. This guy just showed us who he really, really is.
Hey, they're giving you the big break of a lifetime. You're doing the interview. I picked you because, frankly, I never heard of you, but that's okay. I picked you, Terry, but you're not being very nice. He had MS-13 tattooed.
Right. We'll agree to disagree. I want to move on to something else.
Terry. You're out. Done. Finito, as they'd say. But, the bigger issue, again, is that it reflects upon what exactly this mainstream media news stuff really is. if everybody feels like that, but they're going around saying, oh, we have no bias, and yet they believe that somebody has bile in their blood, like, I think there's a little bias there, just a teeny little bit of bias. And so this is why Donald Trump is able to say to ABC when they have correspondence like that, you guys are fake news.
Do you think the reputation of the United States has gone down under your presidency? No, I think it's gone way up, and I think we're a respected country again. We were laughed at all over the world. We had a president that couldn't walk up a flight of stairs, couldn't walk down a flight of stairs, couldn't walk across a stage without falling. We had a president that was grossly incompetent. You knew it, I knew it, and everybody knew it, but you guys didn't want to write it because you're fake news.
All right. Thank you.
And by the way, ABC is one of the worst. I have to be honest with you.
Thank you.
Ooh. Unbelievable. And then he comes out with that tweet on Saturday night. Like, what was going on with this guy? Really and truly. It was bad because, you see, the White House noticed. In fact, J.D. Vance noticed, and he appropriately points out what I was just telling you. Now you know how they really feel. An ABC journalist, Terry Moran, posted this absolutely vile smear of Stephen Miller. It's dripping with hate. Remember the time you watched ABC's coverage of the Trump administration? Did anybody watch? You know. Their ratings are a little bit challenged, although, you know, they still have World News Tonight. They still have quite a big operation, which is why the FCC is looking into things. Well, as it happens, I know Stephen quite well, he writes, and he's motivated by his love of country. He's motivated by a fear that people like Terry Moran, the ABC News correspondent, make rules that normal Americans have to follow, but well-connected people don't. It's why he fought so hard to get President Trump reelected and why he works so hard every day to implement the agenda. ABC should apologize to Stephen. What Terry posted is disgraceful. And it was disgraceful. It was super disgraceful. And ABC had to be holding its breath, right? So then they suspended him. This was their no, amid the suspension, ABC News now stands for... That was my little addition. No. ABC News stands for objectivity and impartiality in its news coverage and does not condone subjective personnel attacks on others. The Post does not reflect the views of ABC News and violated our standards. As a result, Terry Moran has been suspended pending further investigation. This was speaking to the Post. Well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? He's out of a job.
Stephen Miller put a post out about the details of the big, beautiful bill, and he was attacked by one of the reporters apparently on ABC. I saw your tweet about it, and you say last night in a since deleted post, so-called journalist Terry Moran went on a rampage against Stephen Miller. What happened, Caroline?
Well, ABC is going to have to answer for what their, again, so-called journalist put out on Twitter in the wee hours of the night, calling Stephen Miller vile. They said that President Trump is a world-class hater. And this is, again, coming from someone who is supposed to be an unbiased and professional journalist. This is unacceptable and unhinged rhetoric coming from someone who works at a major television network. We have reached out to ABC. They have said they will be taking action, so we will see what they do. But I think this speaks to the distrust that the American public have in the legacy media. And it's why in the White House press shop and in President Trump's White House, we have made so many significant and much needed changes to press access and transparency at the White House. We've invited in new media. We have shaken up the White House press pool. And we also just won a major victory over the Associated Press, who thought that they had a constitutional right to walk into the Oval Office or to fly on Air Force One, and a judge said no. In fact,
she's right. I mean, that's actually a very, very big deal. So ABC News just lost that case against the White House. I'm going to put up what Fox News was reporting, actually the Fox News digital team, because they got a quote here from an ABC News insider. None of this surprises me, actually, and apparently insiders are upset, because they thought Terry was such a nice guy. He had been there for 28 years. But what the ABC spokesperson told Fox News Digital was that quote, we hold all our reporters to the highest standards of objectivity, fairness, and professionalism, and we remain committed to delivering straightforward, trusted journalism. We were at the end of our agreement, they said, with Terry Moran, and based on his recent post, which was clear violation of ABC News policies, we have made the decision not to review, which actually makes you wonder, did he do this deliberately? Did he like literally want to be out of a job? Was that the goal? I mean, you know, you look at the network overall and they're clearly up against it. We have to watch Whoopi Goldberg all the time doing her little thing and Sunny Houston doing her little thing, for goodness sakes, even after Bob Iger has told them to cool it, because guess what? Oh, the FCC has jurisdiction over ABC, which means the FCC could actually not allow all of those affiliates to exist with ABC affiliation. I bet a lot of those affiliates would say, thank you very much. I don't really want to have to pay to run Whoopi Goldberg's program to begin with. Here's the FCC chief, Brandon Carr, just days before Terry Moran decided to go all cray-cray on Twitter, X. This is Brandon Carr saying, hey, we can do some real damage to ABC.
Your probe into Disney's DEI policies. Their senior counsel writes, this is all about bullying and intimidation. Mr. Carr's most powerful tool is his vote on the commission to approve mergers and acquisitions. Is this about Disney's hiring practices, or is it about something else?
Yeah, this is about the hiring practices and their employment practices. Look, broadcasters, and Disney owns one, ABC, they have an obligation under federal law. We have EEO rules at the FCC, which means you can't make hiring decisions based on protected characteristics, including gender and race. And the evidence we have so far indicates potentially that Disney and ABC were making employment decisions based on race and gender, including having effectively race-defined affinity groups within the company. We have evidence that they put quotas in place based on specific demographics. If the evidence does, in fact, play out and shows that they were engaged in race and gender-based discrimination, that's a very serious issue at the FCC that could fundamentally go to their character qualifications to even hold a license. But we're going to follow the facts wherever they go. Look, President Trump's been clear. We are turning the page on DEI. The first week I was chairman of the FCC, I said we are ending our own promotion of DEI at the FCC. People will be shocked if they learned the millions of dollars that the FCC alone was spending to promote DEI. We had it listed as our second highest strategic priority. I mean, think about everything the FCC can and should be doing: national security issues, bridging the digital divide, space economy, and we had promoting DEI as our number 2 strategic priority. Now we're going to focus on our core mission.
It's really amazing, right? Like, what were they doing? Not to mention not constitutional, because you can't just actually hire someone because of their race or their gender or anything else. That would actually be discriminatory. Again, like, we're the constitutional law scholars, thank you very much. So, you know, Iger's in trouble. Brandon sent him a letter, and he means business, which means I just have a feeling that when Iger is out there telling these guys, hey, knock it off on shows like The View, he kind of actually means it. I don't know if they're going to, though, right? Because, you know, they just can't help themselves. Remember Whoopi?
Listen, take him seriously and take him literally.
I don't think that we have to. I think it would be remiss of us to not say Joe Biden knows how to do this. Yes, he knows how to do this. He's quite good at this, and you know, you can't refute anything with him, because he just, when I say him, I mean
he rambles.
Trump. Yeah. He tends to just.
But can I mention one thing? Because Trump is out there calling. Did you say his name?
I said his name.
Unbelievable. We got to change the lower third, the graphic here, to, I got to cross out suspends, right? And we have to say fires hosts. So maybe the guy was doing it because he wants to go get a job at MSNBC. And maybe, you know, I don't know, like, does he look enough like Rachel, guys? I'm sorry. I think that's the prerequisite. You got to be uber liberal, uber progressive, and you must look like Rachel. And if you can talk like Rachel in that little staccato voice, even better. So Terry Moran, we wish him luck. 28 years at ABC, now down the drain. But for the last 28 years, now we know how he felt the whole darn time, right? Sitting there pretending like he's one thing when he's something else entirely, which is what people are so freaking sick of. And I just got the news. We're back on Top 100 again. Hey, guys. Thank you. So keep spreading the word. Let everybody know the Trish Regan Show is here. We're live every day. I get to see all your funny comments. And we try to... You guys crack me up. You really, 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 really crack me up. Hey, you know what? If you have not gone to https://76research.com, do me that favor. Use code $, okay? Because if you use code $, then you're going to get the subscription for $1 a month. It's my financial research company that I created with my longtime, very dear friend who spent decades on Wall Street managing billions of dollars. I'm talking to you as I look at the market right now, and this is the kind of day like I like to buy in because you have things that are down. You got the NASDAQ off about 0.6%. S&P trading down about 0.4%, Dow basically flat, but we got a wonderful note from somebody just the other day, and I loved this. I saw it last night, or maybe the day before. The days are all kind of jumbling together. We've had so much news lately, but I will say that I so appreciated it because the person was saying how much we had helped him, at 76 Research, because he was nervous about making some investments and just having that sort of steady guide from us there with our literature that we publish so regularly really helped him to make the commitment that he needed to make. So let me put this up here in the screen because I do want to make sure that you are able to go to 76research.com and sign up for the 76 report. The 76 report with code word $. And you know what? I also have the link in the show notes, so you can find it there as well. But awesome news. Top 100, baby. Yes, Scott, exactly, right? We're climbing. What do you think? When we get to 1 million, what do you guys want me to sing when I get to 1 million? Peace of my mind, 3,500 likes and counting. We love that. Thank you so much, you guys. Janine Pritchard, I think she could get convicted. I actually do. I wouldn't be surprised. You know what? I don't know if she's going to get the full 17 years, but I would not be surprised. Like this is a new team, all right? A new team. It's a new day. I love having you here. We'll be back tomorrow again live. Plus, we got a whole bunch of content coming your way throughout the afternoon. See you soon.